This podcast has been brought to you by the UK Domain, a free resource to help every small business owner take advantage of online marketing.
Hello and welcome to Small Business Snippets, the podcast from smallbusiness.co.uk. I'm your host, Anna Jordan. Today we have Rachel Elnaugh, author, speaker, mentor, former dragon, and the creator of Red Letter Days. She launched the Experience Day voucher company in 1989 when she was 24 years old. And after a precarious start, a print brochure campaign launched it to success. This led to multiple awards and a place as one of the original dragons on Dragon's Den. The company went into administration in 2005 due to overexpansion, and the remaining assets were bought by fellow dragons Peter Jones and Theo Paphitis. They eventually sold the firm to Buyagift, and now it's owned by French firm the Smartbox Group. Taking the lessons of Red Letter Days with her, Elnaugh now mentors business owners and speaks at events about what she learned from her experiences. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Anna. Thank you for that intro.
Not at all. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yes.
Great. The first thing I would like to ask you about is that you describe yourself as an evolutionary entrepreneur. What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, I've been on my own journey of transformation, and particularly being a business mentor, I have got really interested in what makes one person successful and another not. And so that's kind of my holy grail, to really understand what makes the difference, which has kind of taken me on this journey of discovery through mindset, through energy work and metaphysics. And so I do think that there's a new era of consciousness opening. So I think that I'm moving out of that old sort of capitalist business paradigm into this new era, along with many other people, which is a very different way of doing business, which is much more intuitive and much more about manifestation and effortless flow.
If your focus isn't capitalism, then what is it exactly?
Well, capitalism really is fundamentally about scarcity, and also really about putting money ahead of all other considerations.
Right.
And I think as we move into this new era, we're seeing that businesses that are not just about profit, but also very much about people and about the planet are really coming to the fore, those brands that embrace a much wider idea of success than just money. We're seeing a massive change, and also we're starting to unravel some of the programs of capitalism, like scarcity. For example, with renewable energy, I mean, the sun never stops shining, the waves and the wind never stop. So there's so much natural resource to tap into that I think that this deep program of scarcity is being unraveled and uninstalled.
Yeah, I mean, you can see in businesses now, our corporate social responsibility is non-negotiable. So if the business isn't based on has some sort of ethical basis, then they'll at least have it embedded in their business plan.
Yeah, and I think it goes sort of way beyond just this sort of veneer of corporate social responsibility of sort of wrapping a company with that. I think that the companies that are really powerfully coming through are ones who've actually got ethics at the heart of them. So I think there's a new breed of entrepreneur coming through, which is, it kind of goes way beyond social enterprise. It's people who are working from the heart, really passionate about their businesses and their brands, and really wanting to do business, but in a way that is very nourishing.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I'd like to talk a bit about Red Letter Days as well.
Yes.
You made a loss of 4.7 million at the point where you realised that something was amiss. So according to previous reports, there was various issues, including like management consultants taking on too many projects, a dud CEO, suppliers going unpaid, your financial director keeping information from you. What did it teach you about management?
Yeah, I think when a business goes wrong, I think a lot of waves hit the ship at the same time, because up until that point, we'd had a very successful company that was growing every year, that was profitable. And I started in 2002 kind of winning awards and getting on television.
Right.
And I think that you can kind of get the Midas touch and start to push a business too far and fast. And suddenly it's driven by profit motives and ego rather than just wanting to create great products and services and experiences. And it's very tempting to, we brought in some management consultants who kind of recommended that it was time for the business to grow up and parachute in a new chief executive to take it to the next level, because we really thought we could groom the business to float it. And it was really that process of overexpansion, as you said in the intro, that was our undoing. So I really it was a very big lesson in, I think if I had to sort of share that lesson with other entrepreneurs, I would say just grow organically and in a very steady way, rather than trying to step change a business and leap to the next level. That was the mistake that we made. Yeah.
So there's quite a surge in confidence and then a real dip in confidence.
Well, as I said, a lot of waves hit the ship at the same time. So we parachuted in a chief executive who was brilliant at spending money. He'd actually came in from Thomas Cook, and he was the one who created the JMC brand, which literally the day before he joined was closed down by Thomas Cook, which should have been a sort of warning. I also didn't have a strong enough finance director, and I think that that's really crucial in a business. I realize now that to have a very trusted, rock solid finance director is key. So we kind of overexpanded, overspend, and then crucially, our credit card takings were bonded by our bank. So actually, when we were forced into administration, we actually had 3.3 million cash at bank. So that was another big lesson in that whoever controls the money has all the power. So we had a huge amount of cash at bank, but we just couldn't touch it. And so the bank forced us into administration. And when that bond was unwound over the next year, all of the vouchers had been redeemed. The actual cost of fulfilling them was only just over £1 million. So whilst the bond was appropriate, the level of it was way in excess of what was necessary. And it was that cash flow that actually strangled the business and forced us into administration. So there were a lot of factors involved, and it was a very, very dark, difficult learning process for me. Yeah.
From your learnings, what kind of advice would you give to entrepreneurs about finding the right bank, the right account, the right advisors for them?
It was interesting actually, because I remember on the set of Dragon's Den having a discussion with Duncan Bannatyne, my fellow dragon, and telling him the problems that at that time I was struggling with trying to get this bond lifted. And he just turned to me and said, Rachel, first rule of business, do not bank with Barclays. And the thing is, you don't really understand how much power a bank has over you until you run into problems. And I think some banks are more ruthless than others. It was a big learning curve. But I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm completely blaming and sort of in victim mode, because in truth, we were undercapitalized, and it's very difficult to refinance yourself out of a cash flow issue like that. So if I could have, rerun the clock, it would have been much better for us to have got some proper venture capital funding before embarking on the expansion plan, rather than trying to fund it out of cash flow.
Tell me about the months after the company went into administration. What is it like for you?
It was a bit of a double-edged thing, because on one side of things, it was kind of like quite tragic for me, because I'd spent 16 years building this company literally from nothing. It was literally like my baby, and I'd poured my whole life into it, all of my passion and all of my money. So I kind of lost that. But on the other side of things, it was so stressful towards the end that actually when I finally signed the papers and put it into administration, and I really had no choice, it was actually a massive relief and a release. And actually, I just had my fourth son. I just had a baby a week before. So that was a great gift from God. It was August, the sun was shining, I had a newborn baby. And also I'd just been on Dragon's Den. So I had a whole new world opening up to me of being this sort of TV celebrity entrepreneur. And even though I got annihilated by the press, I was given a book deal, and I wrote a book called Business Nightmares about the fine line between success and failure. And that actually came out in May 2008. And obviously in September 2008, world economies crashed and we had the banking crash. And so this repositioning of myself as a business survivor was actually perfect timing, because it opened up a whole new world of speaking at business events and becoming a mentor and creating lots of different products and ways of helping other people on their entrepreneurial journey.
Mhm.
So it was very synchronistic and very beautiful, even though at the time it felt like the worst possible thing that could ever happen to me.
I read that you found a note that you had written some time before about what you wanted for the future, and it said something along the lines of, I will sell off red letter days.
Well, what actually happened was, this is long before I understood about the power of words and the law of attraction. A friend of mine was training to be a life coach, and she wanted guinea pig clients. And I said, okay, I don't need a life coach, but I'll be your guinea pig client. She got me to write this life plan. So I just kind of wrote this plan, and then I actually found this plan later,
Yeah.
after the company crashed. So I'd written this, several years before, but I found the piece of paper, and on it I'd written, by 2006, get rid of red letter days so I can spend more time at home with my children, be creative and write. And so the universe had delivered that little cosmic order exactly to plan. So you notice I didn't actually write on there, sell red letter days for £20 million, be creative and write. It actually said get rid of. And get rid of is a very angry energy. And so the universe got rid of it for me, So you have to be very careful about, we have to be very careful about our spelling. Spelling is very powerful. You have to be careful what you ask for, because it's delivered often exactly to the word.
Don't get buried online by thousands of other digital savvy businesses. The UK domain can keep you up to date with inside knowledge and practical advice for free. From social media to cybersecurity, they've got it covered. And get this knowledge delivered straight to your inbox by signing up at theukdomain.uk/register.
How about when you went into administration, planning for what would happen within your business, including the staff? What was the process there?
The situation was, we didn't want to go into administration, and, we were obviously working on all sorts of ways to refinance, and I had a refinancing offer from HBOS, and I was looking
I
for
see. Right.
match equity funding. And what actually happened was, one of our suppliers, and sometimes in this situation, suppliers can be their own worst enemy. One of our suppliers took out a winding up order against the company.
Could you briefly describe what a winding up order is for our listeners?
Well, basically, if a company owes you money and
Yeah.
they don't pay, you can basically enter into court a winding up order, which is, if they don't pay, you're going to wind up the company and get your money that way. So it's a bit like it's a bit like dropping a nuclear bomb on someone, to get what you want. And usually, in normal circumstances, that if you receive a winding up order from a creditor, you'd probably just pay them. But in our situation, we couldn't create, it's a long time ago, but I think there was a legal reason why we couldn't just pay them, because we couldn't create preferential creditors. And when a winding up order has been put in, basically every other creditor it basically opens you up to every other creditor, because actually what happened was, creditors started arriving at the company offices to try and take the assets. And so the only way that we could protect the staff was, firstly, to lock the doors. As we were at the lawyer's office in London, and we had staff in our head office in Muswell Hill on the phone saying, there are people turning up at the doors, what do we do? And we just had to say, you have to lock the doors. And we were advised by the lawyers, the only way to protect the company and its assets from these creditors in their vans was to put the company into administration. So we were literally, through that winding up order, we were forced into administration. And as a result, no one got paid, because I couldn't complete the refinancing, and it was kind of game over. So it really was a very fine line between success and failure, because had we not had that winding up order, I could potentially, maybe, and it's always an if, I could have completed on the HBOS deal, the bond would have been released because we would have refinanced. We could have traded through and floated the company, which was the plan, because it had growth and it had profitability and it had a great brand. But alas, alack, it was not to be.
How long would that process take, the refinancing?
All of my time was spent in meetings with banks and financiers. So, I had the deal agreed. It was just a case of finding match equity funding. And I actually did go to Peter and Theo and said, I've got this deal. Could you match fund it? So there was a potential that they could have done that. But actually, they felt there was a bigger opportunity to push it through administration, although that proved to be not the case, because it is a bit like going nuclear when you push a company through administration, and certainly with that industry they couldn't wipe the debt through putting it through administration because no one would supply the business without being paid. So it was it was quite messy.
The experiences industry is huge now. So if you could have started Red Letter Days any time within the past 30 years, just out of curiosity, when would you have launched it?
Well, we were the pioneers of the industry.
Yeah.
And really, the 1980s were about how much you owned, and really the 1990s were about what you'd experienced. So actually, the timing for creating the company was perfect because it kind of captured the zeitgeist of the era. And so we were very much the pioneers of. We weren't the first company that did experiences, but we were the first company to really truly embrace the concept of experiential giving. And
I suppose I'm not sure about our listeners, but for me, it does seem like quite a recent shift towards less buying of stuff to more buying of experiences. But it's interesting to know that back then it was emerging. So it's always great to get in that emerging market.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, we were creating that as we went. So I mean, and a lot of people picked up on it. So we had lots of copycat companies and competitors, and then Virgin Experiences came in on it, and then all of the retailers. And now it's pretty commonplace to see experiences as your prize or gift, as opposed to a TV or a tangible kind of piece of technology kit.
You said that part of the struggle of Red Letter Days was getting suppliers and experience providers on board. Something, as we've just discussed, was quite novel at the time. What would you say to entrepreneurs running a business based on a fairly new concept?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, in essence, Red Letter Days was a marketing portal. And when we launched in 1989, everyone's kind of books were full, and the business was booming. But actually, what happened then was that was a kind of the first recession happened in the early 1990s, and people's revenues started dropping. So actually, even though a recession was opening, that was a great opportunity for us because people could see their sales were dropping and they wanted more promotion, especially free promotion, which was what we were offering. So I think every era, there's always opportunity in adversity. And I think you just have to tune into the market and be resourceful and just go with the flow and find out where's people's point of pain and provide a solution to it.
Well, that's it from me. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, that's fine. Hopefully that's been useful.
Yeah, it has been. Thank you so much. You can find out more about Rachel at rachelelnaugh.com. You can also visit smallbusiness.co.uk for more guidance on mental well-being and expanding your company. Remember to like us on Facebook at Small Business Experts and follow us on Twitter at Small Business UK, all lowercase. Until next time, thank you for listening.